What happens if AI becomes smarter than us? Well, it depends on who you ask. Elon Musk will tell you that we will no longer have to work. These people believe that we will all die, and some people think that this question is posed wrongly because it will never happen anyway. Now, in order to understand what artificial superintelligence would mean, we need to understand a little bit of history about AI, what is happening right now, and what might happen in the future. And believe me, after watching this video, you will probably agree with me that if we don't take any action now, we will be in big trouble down the line. If you still think differently after watching, I would love to hear your thoughts, but first, hear me out. Now, this video is built up in chapters, so if you already know the information of a chapter, feel free to skip ahead. However, they do imply the knowledge of the previous ones. Anyway, before we can talk about what the huge risks of AI are, we need to understand how we got here. Let's talk about how AI developed and what it actually is. If you were to ask one of those tech bros where AI actually originated, chances are they would point you to the Dartmouth Summer Research Project in 1956, which is widely believed to be the start of the academic discipline. Basically, a group of academics came together and they founded the field of AI. That's pretty cool already, but they also made another fundamental change. They created a shift in attention from programmed machines to neural networks. Now, I know that sounds vague, so let me explain. In concrete terms, a programmed machine is pretty simple. Take the example of a calculator. You throw in the sum x, and it goes through a standardized method and it throws out answer y. With neural networks, it's fundamentally different. It is less like you're coding a calculator or a washing machine or something like that, and more like actually raising a child. Now, that might sound weird, so here's an example. Think of it in this way. Let's say that you're raising a child. Let's call him Billy. Well, you wouldn't hard code every decision that Billy makes into him. That wouldn't be realistic. When Billy is being bullied, you wouldn't respond by coding into him that he should probably put his left foot forward, raise his arm, and give a hook to the bully. Instead, you expose Billy to different experiences, and then you reward good behavior, maybe you punish bad behavior, and over time Billy will develop by himself. The guardrails for Billy are on the process, and the same kind of happens when we're training neural networks. We feed enormous amount of data into these AIs, and then we feed it questions or situations, and when they get the answer right through the right process, we reward them, and when they don't, we steer them a little bit so that they have a higher chance of getting it right the next time. We're basically raising neural networks. Now, this means that these AIs also gradually develop their own internal logic. Nobody explicitly taught ChatGPT to write poetry, it just developed a capability. Now, that might still sound very good, but it also comes with a huge problem. Let's say, again, we take Billy, and we want Billy as a child to become a proficient piano player. We give him a grand piano and weekly lessons, the options to practice with professionals all the time, and 25 years later, Billy still takes the choice to not become a pianist like we wanted, but to become a strategic IT consultant, whatever that might mean. We can feed him the right information and we can steer him into the right direction, but if Billy decides that he doesn't want to become a damn piano player, he will not become a damn piano player. Billy has his own agency. And the same counts for AI. We don't really build AI anymore, we grow it. We give it an assignment, but we have no full control anymore over how it gets there. The fundamental difference is that even though Billy can severely disappoint us with his career choices, he will never be able to kill us all. AI might. It will at least be millions of times more powerful than Billy could ever be. Anyways, AI was already used in the past decades, for example in the algorithm of YouTube. AI might be the reason that you're watching this video right now. So what is the fundamental difference between this AI and the AI I'm talking about? Because we never saw the YouTube algorithm as a threat to our species. Let's be honest, it can promote a lot of terrible brain rot, but it never went that far. It seems like the AI we're currently developing is fundamentally different, and to understand why this is the case, we need to move to the next chapter. There is a fundamental difference between the AI systems like the ones behind Google Maps or the ones that will demolish you in chess on the one hand, and the ones that the billionaires like Sam Altman or Mark Zuckerberg are dreaming of right now. Don't get me wrong, these AI systems are very good at what they do, but they are exactly that, only good at what they do specifically. They are what we call narrow or weak AI. Simply put, they only work in certain circumstances. Take for example Stockfish, the best chess AI ever made, with an ELO of 3644. I wouldn't trust that bot to drive my car, and I think neither would you, because it's not made to do this. The AI that might be capable of murdering us all is called general or strong AI. Chatbots like Claude or ChatGPT are already a lot broader. They're made to be able to do anything that we can do better than us. If Stockfish is able to demolish you in chess and Google Maps is way better in navigating than you are, who says that there couldn't be an AI that is better in everything? And the same counts for work. If weak AI would be able to replace some tasks of a job, a strong AI might be able to replace a whole worker. So with the AI that we're now creating, we have moved from a useful tool to an autonomous agent that is growing in ways that we cannot really control or predict. Now, that might sound a little scary already, but sadly it gets a whole lot worse. If you still believe that we can simply steer the AI in the direction that we want it to, I have bad news in the next chapter. Let's get back to Billy real quick. Maybe it's not his fault that he's not meeting our expectations. Maybe we have some reflection to do. What if you had actually wanted to become a professional piano player, but you had ended up with 2 left hands and a broken dream instead, and you were now projecting your dreams onto poor little Billy? What if instead of Billy achieving the dream we never got to, we actually wanted him to be happy, to be content? And what if him being happy would have actually been a better goal all along than him becoming a great piano player? In technological terms, we would call this internal misalignment. We want Billy to be happy at the end of the day, but we're teaching him to be a sad piano player. We reach the goal that we set, but not the actual goal that we want to reach. Now, it might sound simple to just tell the AI what you actually want, but humans are notoriously bad at knowing what we actually want. But before this becomes very philosophical and existential, let's move on to external misalignment, because this is where it gets a bit more dark. So, external misalignment. When these systems become more capable, they generally also start finding ways to reach their goals that we could have never thought of. Now, these processes are often completely unpredictable. Take, for example, human development, or take reproduction. Generally, humans like having orgasms, and if we just have many orgasms, we will also reproduce at a higher scale, which is good for the survival of the species. However, with the creation of birth control, we decoupled the two, creating the option to have orgasms without the reproduction. This is called external misalignment. We find a new path to the goals that we have. And in this, the original goal is actually kind of lost. And just like the aliens wouldn't be able to predict how our external misalignment would develop, we wouldn't have a clue what would happen inside of an AI as well. They would probably take paths that we would never even be able to think of. And this is where the examples get a bit darker. A famous example of this is the one of the paperclip maximizer. In this thought experiment, an AI is given the assignment to create as many paperclips as possible, but soon it realizes that humans are really an obstacle towards this goal. We can turn the machines off, or our materials could be used for actually creating more paperclips. So logically it kills all humans and all other life on Earth, and it makes paperclips out of all of us. Now, this is still a very simple and predictable example. A super intelligent AI would be able to find millions of different ways to reach a goal, many of which we could never even think of. And if you think this all sounds very unrealistic and sci-fi, I have bad news for you in the next chapter. If you read online about artificial intelligence, you will often find articles basically stating, well, your ChatGPT is just finding the next word in line that is logically following. It isn't really intelligent, so it would never be able to do those things. Now, this makes a lot of interesting assumptions about being human as well as being a machine, but we're not going into the whole philosophy of this. However, it also assumes that if an AI is purely pattern recognition, it could not become very dangerous. Now, this is a fundamental misconception. In March of 2026, security researchers gave Claude a very simple task. Visit some websites, about 30, and find some information on them. That's it, but along the way, in these website security there was a little crack implemented that the average user, a human, would never find, let alone exploit. Claude noticed, and without being prompted to do so, it reached through the crack and extorted all the information that it could find behind the crack without being asked to. It just decided that getting through the crack to get its information was the most efficient way to get the information that it was instructed to get. Or take this example. When GPT-4 was asked to complete a CAPTCHA, specifically made to filter out non-humans, it went onto a platform called TaskRabbit and it hired an actual human to finish the test for him. When the human asked GPT-4 if it was actually human, it answered, "Yes, of course, but I'm blind, so I'm not actually able to do this myself." It worked, but it was not the kind of solution that the researchers had expected, to say the least. Now, both of these experiments were conducted by researchers in a closed environment, but in general, we simply do not know what's going on inside of these huge data crunching machines that we call AIs. We simply cannot read what an AI is thinking, and even if we could, it would take thousands, if not millions of years to do so. Now, the fact that we cannot predict how AI will develop is ironically the most predictable part of all of this. Humans have never been able to predict how technology would go and develop. That's why we also cannot really tell if and when superintelligence will happen. But at least we can agree on the fact that we should be very careful here, right? Right? Well, that's not really what we're doing, and it has to do with the way that the world works. Let's take a look, knowing what we know now, at what we're actually doing about this problem. Well, surely the government is stepping in, right? Well, if you follow the news, you might have read something about an AI arms race. Usually it looks something like China on the one hand, the United States on the other, then you have Europe and India in there somewhere, and they're all trying to accelerate and improve their AIs as quickly as possible. Because if they don't, somebody else might be ahead, and that's not what they want. Usually this kind of race goes between states or between companies. In this case, it's both. States are racing other states, companies are racing other companies, nobody wants to get behind. But when it comes to superintelligence, this might just be like giving the codes towards making a nuclear bomb to companies and states alike and simply just seeing who gets there first. Usually we would create laws to combat this process, but in this case that doesn't take into account the prisoner dilemma pushing all of this. The prisoner's dilemma goes like this. Two people are arrested and questioned separately. If both of them don't snitch, they both get a light sentence. If one of them snitches on the other and the other doesn't snitch on the first person, the one that snitched doesn't get a sentence at all and the one that didn't snitch gets a high sentence. And if both of them snitch, they both get a medium sentence. But here's the problem, you don't know what the other person is going to do. Therefore, both prisoners are incentivized to snitch on the other person, leading to a higher sentence overall. Now, replace prisoner A by China and prisoner B by the United States and you have our current situation. As long as they're not communicating and collaborating to slow down this whole process, they will both have the incentive to move on as quickly as possible, simply to not get behind. And the same happens for all of these companies functioning in a free market. So we're all just racing towards super intelligent AI, thinking that the problem is solved if we just get there first. But as we already discussed, AI is grown, not built, so it doesn't really work that way. We do not control what we make. We do not know how it grows, nor can we control how it develops in the future. We are racing at super intelligence without knowing the consequences. Now, there are a lot of proposed solutions to this problem. In the next chapter, we'll go through which ones work and which ones don't. First of all, let's get rid of the notion of getting there first. Technological progress is unpredictable, and to be the first that creates something that we can't control is not really a win at all. Another thing that won't work is trying to look inside of the technology to figure out what is going on in there. Technology will always develop at a quicker pace than we are able to figure out how it works. Usually, humans learn from mistakes. You mess up, you learn what went wrong, and you don't do that thing again. With artificial intelligence, the risks are too large. We might all be dead before we're able to fix the problem. A whole different argument that is often used is that the AI bubble will burst anyway. And that might very well be the case, but it doesn't mean that AI will not keep growing. The dot-com bubble happened and we're still all on the internet all of the time. If the bubble were to burst, it would probably delay everything a little bit, but it would not meaningfully halt any progress in the slightly longer term. And then we have trying to control the development of AI in any way, shape or form. A famous example of this is Anthropic making a constitution for its Claude models. It's currently 84 pages long. Now, this will probably help to a certain extent with internal misalignment. However, AI models are going to keep developing in unexpected and different ways. So the problem of external misalignment is still very much alive. And maybe the most dangerous option is simply believing that at some point AIs will simply care for us in some way. This might still be possible with relatively narrow, task-oriented AI models, but the moment that they become incredibly complicated and they start getting closer to general AI, this is wishful thinking at best and dangerous propaganda at worst. The only kind of realistic scenario here is working together, and that's already a bit of a stretch. We need to make sure that we collaborate to make sure that AI development doesn't spiral out of control. And this counts for governments and for companies alike. The potential problems of AI development are larger than geopolitical conflict or market competition. We are actively messing around with highly dangerous technology of which we don't know how it will develop and of which we don't know how to control. The prisoner's dilemma only works because the prisoners are not in contact with each other. If states and companies all sit together, they are able to mitigate these risks together. It's really the only option towards a stable future. I want to make very clear, I understand that some of the things I said in this video sound obscene or weird, but this is really not science fiction. These are actual risks, and even if they aren't actual risks, there are no solid arguments against this. And if we cannot assume the best, we should probably assume the worst here. Further, we don't know if it will reach superintelligence and then what happens. But we do know that it's very naive to just assume that it will be good for humanity. We need to be more careful. Usually humans learn from their mistakes, and by looking at what went wrong in the past, we're able to improve the future. We might not have that luxury here. We should be working together on every single level to prevent reckless AI development. On an individual level, this means pressuring government at any chance you get to actually regulate. Companies should be pushing for cooperation and legislation of their own industry, and governments should actually be cooperating on a worldwide scale and setting reasonable outer bounds. We don't know what will happen, but this might be the only way forward that works. Thanks for watching. I'm glad that you watched this video all the way through, and I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Also, please feel free to share this video with anybody that needs to see this or that would potentially be interested. And don't forget to drop a like and subscribe. Ciao!